The Flash, issue 764, finds Iris knowing something is troubling Barry, who says that after all the trouble with the trickster, he never wants to take his Flash ring off again. Iris thinks that it must be nice having a ring you don't want to have leave your finger, which reminds her that she bought a present for Barry, hoping the small box won't freak him out since it's just a pair of earbuds he might like to use while he runs. Before Iris can give him the gift though, the news breaks of Dr. Alchemy escaping Iron Heights. Barry speeds off as outside the prison, Dr. Alchemy uses the Philosopher's Stone to cause it to rain bullets on the police, wounding many of the responding officers. Barry knows that because of the stone, Albert could have just snuck out of Iron Heights without leaving a trace, but the villain wants this attention. The Flash employs his usual strategy for dealing with the villain, which is to get him away from the stone. Moving at high speed, Flash stays out of sight of the villain, who notices the bullets are starting to redirect themselves mid-flight, so he knows Flash is in the area, catching Barry and firing a beam at the hero. The beam hits the hero's mask, covering his face in mercury, which forces the hero to rip his melting mask off as Dr. Alchemy provides a brief history lesson on the substance, knowing it made 17th century miners go insane when their hats were made out of it, which is where the term Mad Hatter comes from. Vibrating his face to hide his identity, Barry recovers in an eighth of a millisecond, his burns healing quickly as the police fire on Albert, who turns their bullets into a noxious gas that he intends on killing them with. Flash takes Alchemy by surprise, cleaning the air quickly as Albert says that 9/10 of the law is possession, the other 10th is knowing how to use it. He activates his stone again, converting the concrete below them all into water. Thanks to the weight of the police officers' bulletproof vests, they begin to drown, forcing Flash to let Alchemy get away as he rescues the cops. Later on, Barry tells Iris Albert wasn't wrong about the hero not knowing how to use the stone, but he's been studying up on it. However, the information on it is so cryptic. Iris knows that this means that they aren't going to that new exhibit at Central City Expo, but Barry knows they can, if he's good enough at cryptology as he is at chemistry. Barry tells Iris that even though the Philosopher's Stone dates back to ancient times, there was no actual illustration of the stone until the 17th century, when the Illuminati first emerged on the scene. Iris thinks that Barry should call Batman for help, since after all he is a detective, but Barry knows he's a speedster, wondering if she thinks Batman calls him every time he needs something done quick. Iris knows that she would, joking about giving Barry a grocery list for him to pick up real quick. Barry finds the joke very funny, reminding Iris that he is a member of the Justice League and would love someone on his side on this, considering the long line of crazed chemists the stone has had on its side, from Zosamos to Paracelsus, all who wanted to use the stone to help unlock ultimate knowledge through the elements. But Simon Magus was the first to ever weaponize the stone, carving a path of destruction through medieval Europe and other dimensions. He knows Albert wants more than power, immortality, and knowledge, however. Instead, Albert is attempting something nearly impossible. Later in his lab, Barry tells Iris that Albert wants to absorb the power of the stone, so he doesn't need the stone itself anymore. And while the hero is unsure he can actually do it, he cannot let it happen. Iris asks what he's going to do, so Barry shows her his calculations and research, which shows that what he thought was just a symbol for the stone is actually a blueprint on how to create the stone, which he knows Albert might not know about yet, since he inherited the stone and didn't make one, which gives Barry an advantage over him. Iris is glad Barry didn't need Batman's help, but maybe the Dark Knight will want to take her to the Metal Men exhibit. Barry realizes that's it, as Will Magnus created the Metal Men using responsometers, which turned elements like gold and iron and platinum into a crime-fighting team. He wonders if Will is related to Simon Magus, and if he is, it explains how he was able to use something related to the Philosopher's Stone to create the responsometers, not to mention his slight name change to distance himself from the infamous sorcerer. Barry is still unsure if the responsometers are what Dr. Alchemy wants, but if he reverse engineers their process, it could get the villain closer to his objective, and explains why he chose now to strike, since the exhibit has just arrived in town. Now with more knowledge of the stone, Barry speeds off to the exhibition, knowing with his extra knowledge he should be able to disrupt Alchemy's power to transmute the elements, only needing to disrupt one part of his equations to change everything. Speeding around the exhibit, Flash can't find the villain when suddenly Dr. Alchemy appears in a blinding light above the exhibit, showing off his new flying powers. Barry thinks that he's just showing off, but the villain smashes the windows because of it, raining glass down on the people. With not enough time to get everyone out of the way, Barry comes up with his own chemical solution, speeding around the room and creating an airflow that is the exact temperature needed to safely melt glass away into nothing. Doing so causes Dr. Alchemy to turn on Flash, which is what the hero anticipated, ready to disrupt Albert's equations by generating a high level of electrical heat, which he uses to zap Alchemy's beam with, which dissipates it. However, the villain does manage to get the responsometer in the chaos. Barry gives chase but realizes something is wrong as his speed isn't working. Dr. Alchemy asks if Flash can feel the speed force leaving his body, punching the hero in the gut and wondering if he can feel that as well. Alchemy says that he could alter the air in the building and kill everyone in a raging inferno, and Flash wouldn't be able to stop it, but he's not going to do that, despite the devastation being immense. He knows the fires would eventually die out, but the image of the Flash not being able to catch him would be burned into the people's memories forever. The villain escapes through the responsometers, leaving Barry to be surrounded by people who watch the hero let the villain get away. The Flash issue 764 kicked off Kevin Shinnick's Dr. Alchemy arc in a creative yet rather stilted way, with Barry battling his old enemy and losing his powers. The problems I had with this issue mainly stem from the dialogue, which came across really forced, especially for the first couple of pages, with the book literally opening with Barry going, "Boy, I sure love my ring and don't ever want to have to take it off," with Iris making a really on-the-nose marriage comment. It all felt really out of place considering the issue before this one was really quite great and a great transition over into this new writer. The whole issue also overly explains all of the things Barry and Dr. Alchemy are doing. I guess that could be because Dr. Alchemy's powers could confuse some people, but it just felt way too overly explained. The creativeness on how Barry fought the villain and how the villain's powers did work were fun to watch and see in the art, but it was the dialogue of it all that really let me down. I'm going to give this issue a 5.5 out of 10.